Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. So last week we talked about a story about a guy named Enoch. And Enoch was somebody who the scripture says walked with God, and then God took him. And I told you that I'd let you have a copy of an article that Danny Mann wrote. And Danny Mann is a very talented writer. He's a very talented Bible class teacher. He has a tendency to think a little different. He always says that he's just a simple man, but for his simplicity, he does a really good job of bringing stories to life. And so I want to read to you the article today as part of the Coffee and the Word, and I might read some other articles in the future just because I really like his style of writing, and it tends to this kind of platform. So the title of today's article by Danny Mann is Enoch, the First Power Walker. The walkers, they are everywhere. My neighborhood is full of them. They walk in the morning, they walk in the middle of the day. Some of them even walk at night. Some of the walkers really pick them up and put them down. It's called power walking. You don't want to get in their way. You might get run over. They aren't mean, just intense. Power walkers usually wear expensive, specially designed power walking shoes. Most of them have specially designed portable power walking MP3 players connected to specifically designed power walking earplugs, and they are listening to specifically designed power walking music. The closest I come to power walking is the desperate, staggering lunge I take from my bed to the coffee pot every morning. This is probably something I should change since I'm growing a third chin and the girth of my gut is about to surpass that of my chest. Some of the power walkers are just out for a stroll. The strolling walkers aren't ambling for exercise. For them, it's more about recreation. They don't walk alone. There's usually 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Sometimes it's the whole family, mom, dad, and the kids. These walkers are not in a hurry. Unlike the power walkers, they'll smile and wave. They might even stop and talk. To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure that they'll stop and talk. It's been way too hot to get off the couch to go outside and find out. In the olden days, back before planes, trains, and automobiles, people didn't walk for exercise or even fun. They walked because unless they had a horse or a donkey or a camel, it was the only way to get from one place to another. I bet if I lived back then, I wouldn't have all these chins. There's a fascinating few verses in Genesis about a walker. His name was Enoch. He was Methuselah's dad. Remember Methuselah? He's known for his longevity. He died at the ripe old age of 969 years. Is that watching a few seasons change or what? Enoch isn't known for longevity. He was only around for a brief 365 years. Enoch's claim to fame was walking with God. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Although Enoch lived 365 years, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. Wow, walking with God. If you're a faithful reader of this column, you know that I have a rather wild and wacky imagination. And when I read these short verses, it really starts to crank up. Can you hear this conversation? Mrs. Enoch. Methuselah, have you seen your father? Methuselah. Not since about 3 o'clock. It's getting close to midnight and he's nowhere to be found. What was he doing when you saw him? He was watering the camels out in the back 40. Did he say anything to you? Tell you where he was going? Come on, Mom. You know what he does most days before dinner. He and God go for a walk. Yes, I know. But he's always back in time to help me set the table. Do you suppose he got lost? I doubt it, Mother. I mean, he's walking with God, for goodness sake. God sort of knows the lay of the land. Don't smart off to me, Methuselah. Brush your teeth and go to bed. I'm going to wait up a few more minutes. And so she did. Waited and waited and waited. I wonder if she slept at all that night. Enoch never came back. He left his home to walk with God. They must have walked a long way. Maybe they walked so far that God said, Enoch, we're closer to my house than we are to yours. Why don't you just come home with me? That's an offer that can't be refused. Reread those words from Genesis and let your imagination run wild. And consider this question. If you could walk with God, would you walk with God? Before you lunge forward with enthusiastic yes, take a moment to remember some of the people who agreed to walk with God. Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Joshua. And that's just to name a few from the Old Testament. Remember Joseph and Mary? Remember the 12 disciples? Remember Paul the Apostle? They all, in one way or another, walked with God. And they all wound up in places they never expected to be. In fact, many of them wound up in places they didn't want to be. So I'll ask you again, and consider your answer carefully. If you could walk with God, would you walk with God? Really? I'm going to leave it there because I think Danny does a good job of leaving with you with something to ponder. Would you really walk with God? Really? Tomorrow we'll get back to our text. We'll be in Genesis chapter 6. We're going to talk about the Noah building an ark. And that's not just a children's story. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. For today, I hope this was an encouragement to you. I hope you enjoyed the dialogue that Danny created between Mrs. Enoch and Methuselah. But for today, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. This has been another edition of Coffee and the Word.